Good morning, Harry. Good morning, Rebecca.
How are you? I think I just have me. Is Rebecca here too?
Let me check. Not yet.
Because it seems to be showing me as the host, which is a bit of a surprise. That's all right. I mean, I do it for the Housing Trust, so I know how to do it. Hmm. Let's go. And here's Jim. Well, apparently I'm hosting this meeting. I didn't expect that.
I think I do recall, Harry, that Rebecca said she wouldn't be able to attend this one.
Okay, well, I know Rebecca Slick is away.
Rebecca Eldridge also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I just clicked on join meeting and next thing I knew I was the host, but that's fine. And actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the recording for right now.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. This is
Good
a
morning.
meeting of the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force Evaluation Committee. I want to thank Jim for arranging to have Paul Millett with us today to give us the whole scoop on everything we need to know about the water tower and surrounding area. So I'd love to start with you, Paul.
Sure. So I spoke with Jim briefly yesterday, and in preparation of I downloaded the 3 proposal documents and basically overlaid their concept drawings with the existing water tank and the existing water pipe and electrical line that goes to the tank. Now, realizing that these are early concept drawings from each development team, if I can do share screen, I have an overlay. Let me try and do the share screen here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, if I can. Do I have to make you a co-host to allow you to share the screen, Paul?
You may. I know I do Teams a lot too. I don't recall, Harry, you may need to do that. I'm not an expert. I do Teams a lot rather than Zoom, but I don't know. I think you do.
Okay, well,
I think you do.
Go. Okay, well,
Can
you are
see
now.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me do this. Hold on a second. Apologies. All right, share screen. Does that work?
Oh,
Apparently not. So
Hang on.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Okay.
So so this is the CIV. This is the Civico layout. So the
Yep.
water tank. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So what we do is I overlaid the water tank and the access road, which is this road here off of
Long Pond.
Long
Long
Pond
Pond,
Road.
excuse me, yeah, and then Lawrence Road is over here. In general, there are no showstoppers with either of the three development plans. There are some minor issues that need to be resolved as the final design develops over the next several months or so. So the blue line here is the water pipe that comes out of the tank, goes down Lawrence Road, and there's also a parallel electrical line. So in concept, it looks like, obviously this pipe and conduit need to stay as is, and they show some trees here. I mean, this is concept level drawing, so this appears to be okay. And I can send these as a PDF to Harry or Jim or to whomever after the meeting is over, just so you have a record.
Great.
So my only concern here with the Civico proposal is, so our existing access road is this shown here. They appear to have this kind of meandering, path here along our access road. We would need to be able to preserve access to the water tank for routine maintenance and for painting in the future. So the final design of this access road, of the proposed access road to the tank, needs to preserve unlimited access to the existing tank for maintenance. Let me see if I can go across here. So that was the Civico proposal. And this is just a different overlay. The other proposal the second proposal from TCB.
That looks like, oh yeah, no, that looks like POA.
That's POA.
I'm sorry, I'm from POA, excuse me. So this is the POA plan. And again, this is, with the overlay. There's less interference here, if you will, with the water tank access road. This is the access road. This is the water line and the electrical conduit. This appears to have minimal issues. Again, we need to just, whatever agreement is formalized with the selected developer needs to have appropriate language to preserve access to the water tank for routine maintenance. So with this proposal, I don't see any obvious conflicts. Then going to the final submission this is the TCB layout.
Mhm.
There don't appear to be any issues here. This is the water line and the electrical conduit. This is the access road. Their green pipe is their sewer force main, which crosses the water pipe. We would have to have appropriate separation both vertically between the sewer pipe and the water pipe, obviously. They show their wastewater treatment plant over here to the right of the access road. I'm just looking at it from a water system point of view, but this appears to be reasonable. So I guess in summary, the biggest concern I have is with this layout here, the Civico, CIVICO layout. The access road needs to be adjusted or modified during the final design to, provide free and clear access to the water tank for maintenance. The other, I don't need to share my screen anymore. That's pretty much it. I will stop sharing. So the only other concern would be the detailed design of the water pipe through the development to each of the units obviously hasn't been done at this stage. It's pretty routine engineering, and I know they haven't gotten that far yet, but the actual number of hydrants on the property and the size of the services to each building would need to be provided during final design. But that's by no means a showstopper at this time. And then I guess finally, whatever other access requirements the fire chief may have for, fire vehicle access to and from the property is a separate issue, which I'm sure the fire chief can comment on. But I mean, in summary, there are really no showstoppers. The access road issue needs to be tweaked during final design. And then the separation, the horizontal and vertical separation between water and sewer pipes needs to be respected as well as the design develops. Again, these are concept plans. I mean, they're good concept plans, but they're early stage concepts. And I will stop there.
Jan, you have a question?
When you say you need access for maintenance, is that vehicle access or other kinds of access?
It's both, Jan. I mean, ultimately, the water tanks need to be. I know Whitewater has a regular, pickup size truck that goes out there every day. That's a small vehicle, but water tanks need to be painted every 15 to 20 years. So within the next 10 years, the town will need to paint the water tank, which means larger equipment, needs to shroud the tank, sandblast the paint the tank. So you need larger equipment. And we have a fenced in area around the tank, Jan, that you're probably aware of.
Right.
It's a bit, so there's a circle and then there's an outer circle around the tank.
Yes,
That's all the equipment can go in that outer circle, if you will, but we're going to need some access
have
along
to
the
get
access
in and
road.
out. Yeah, okay, that's what I wondered. Thank you.
Gary?
Jim, I'm just thinking that if the water tank needs to be repainted in the next 10 years, and for the sake of argument, that the construction will be completed in approximately 5 years for 95 Lawrence, 4 to 5 years, maybe it makes sense to plan the water tower painting before the finish of the building, because otherwise we'll have to deal with that just shortly into the cycle. So just a thought. I have a second question. It's not really Paul's area, but the wastewater treatment is the towns, not the developers. So is the siting of the development affect the location of the wastewater treatment plant, or will it pretty much go the same place no matter what?
I mean, I can briefly comment on it, but it's not my purview
I
to review it.
understand, right?
Yeah,
I
but
was
I
curious.
guess I'll give you the benefit of my engineering observation. It looks like each developer has their own, concept layout for where the plant will go on the site. My only comment would be on the TCB layout has the wastewater treatment plant to the right of the existing access road and obviously closer to an existing residence house on
Lawrence,
Long Pond Road. So
Right.
wastewater treatment plants obviously can have some odor issues. Again, just a comment should be, there should be odor control included in the wastewater treatment plant for obvious odor control reasons.
I had trouble finding it on the other two drawings. Does everybody else know where the wastewater was cited on?
well,
Yeah.
one was in the very back.
Or-
Maybe Paul can answer that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess Harry, I may try and do share screen again. So
Sure. Yep,
can you see this?
yep.
So
that's Civico.
hang on. So that's the Civico. I apologize.
Mm.
Oh,
This is POA.
yeah. You'd have to ask me. I know where it is. Okay, maybe I back up here. So the easy one on the third one, the TCB layout. It's over here on the right-hand side of the existing
Right.
roadway.
Mhm.
Hold on. I recall. Okay, yeah, I would need to pull it out on a different drawing. I apologize. I recall it was down to there was one of them had it down here on the lower left side of the drawing, if you will.
Okay, I'll look again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess, Jim, I assume somebody else is looking at the wastewater portions of this job, and
Right,
that's going to be commented on separately.
right, yes. Yeah, we'll have our clean water / wastewater committee weighing in, like you have sort of early to give us some heads up. And you mentioned the fenced area. That has to remain fenced as is, correct, or not?
Yeah, the fenced area, the fenced circle around the tank, Elaine, yes, should remain fenced as is. There is the fenced area along the access road coming up from Long Pond that can be adjusted, and that can be, modified within reason.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Paul? Kathleen?
Yeah, Paul, I have walked the site fairly recently, and it looks to me like the water tank needs to be painted or cleaned now.
Right.
It's rather unsightly, and I would hesitate to try and think we can push it off for another 4 or 5 years. Jim, you have an answer for that?
Yeah, we are waiting now on, we have proposals on the cleaning of that and the inspection of the tank. And the only reason that it's been delayed is that we're in the midst of recontracting for the operating, the water system operator. In this case, it's Whitewater Whether it will be Whitewater going forward or not, I can't say for sure, but that RFP will be going out within the next several weeks. And
Good.
And my second part of the question is, with regard to the cleaning, Jim, are you foreseeing conflict or problems with the abutting neighbor as have been in the past?
I know who you're referring to there. Yeah. I think we will give them notice. I'm not sure exactly what process they will use to do the cleaning. What the status of it at this point is, what you're seeing on the tank is essentially mold, and it's due to condensation on the lower part of the tank, resulting in mold, and it cleaned without sandblasting apparently. But they will be doing a full inspection of the tank at the same time, and that means the inside of the tank as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. So I will send Jim Hood just a
That's
PDF
fine.
of the drawings I commented on, so you have them, and I'm happy to help.
That would be great. Jim?
Just so we know that I've also reached out to Rich Pauley and asked him that we would hopefully like to have him comment on this issue as well, in terms of the impact on the fire department.
Great. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
and-
so much, Paul. Oh,
Yeah,
Harry?
yeah, I guess just one final comment to add to Jim's comment. The actual width of the roadway through the development needs to be wide enough, obviously, for emergency vehicles.
Right.
It seems trivial, but it's an important basic issue that sometimes becomes an issue. But yeah, it needs to be make sure it's wide enough for emergency vehicles and fire trucks to have free and clear access.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Rich Pauley yesterday on another matter and mentioned to him that we had 3 proposals and that perhaps his comments earlier would be better than later. And I sent him a link to the 3 proposals.
Good.
So I did that yesterday. Also, process-related issue. Sunday, I reissued the RFQ for financial review of the developer pro formas and sent it to 9 individuals, asking for proposals back by Tuesday after Labor Day, next Tuesday. 2 so far have said they won't be able, they just don't have the time to do it. So there are 7 more to be heard from. And so that's where that is.
Okay. All
Can I
right.
ask Laura a question, Elaine? Laura, if we
Paul,
can't
if you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Thank you.
Paul.
Really appreciate it.
Laura, if we can't get someone to do the financial review, is that something either you or somebody else at MHP could maybe help us with if we can't get someone in that time period?
Yeah. You're muted.
Sorry, I have machinery going here, so hopefully you can still hear me.
Mhm.
I have typically I would do this. So I'll have to talk to our general counsel, because you have letters of interest, I think, from MHP for financing.
Right, could be
Mhm.
helpful.
Right. Yeah. Harry, did you send it by any chance to Paul Rishinskis again?
I sent it to everybody I'd originally sent it to,
Okay.
and let them know it was a revised request with a longer deliverable date.
Yeah. If Paul wasn't on that list, maybe we can send it to him again and twist his arm.
Let me just take a look and see whether he was on that list. His name again?
Paul Rishinskis. He was one of the first 2 names that Laura gave us. I had
two names from Laura, Paula Schnepp and Maura Songus. Those are, so there must be another email floating around with other
Yeah.
names.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought I made a complete list and then I mustn't have saved it properly. What
Okay,
I
well,
said. I'll send
I
you
will-
all.
tell you what, I'll send you the log that shows exactly who I've sent stuff to and where it's gone.
Okay,
And we can clean that up in the next few, maybe this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
okey doke. All right, well, so I think the next order of business is to work through our two other, our
Right.
first pass through the evaluation criteria for Civica and TCB. Can we start with Civica?
Sure.
I think we might be able to move through both a little faster based on our experience with the first one.
Did anyone have trouble printing that new spreadsheet that Laura sent? 'Cause I couldn't get it to format.
I don't have it either, so.
I don't either.
I don't either.
I haven't tried yet. Laura just sent it right before the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I've been using the previous document.
yeah, I'll check it out after. See.
All right, pencils are ready.
All right. Where's my pencil? There it is. All right, so we're looking at Civica. Does anybody have Jay's cell phone number? Want to text him and see if he can join us? I probably do. Maybe I'll give that a try. Might have thought it was 10 o'clock. Okay, so Civica. Developer experience and capacity. Comments on this section.
Hi, Elaine.
Harry,
I was looking to see which projects they had done, they had identified as comparable. And I came away with just two of them as being listed by them. And so I'm just trying to figure out whether, what's what.
Lincoln and one in Western Mass or,
He said, let's see. Civico developments in Lincoln and Reading were 60 and 55 units respectfully. Each received funding from DHCD and have been leased in accordance with their guidelines.
yeah,
So that's two. I
Two.
didn't see anything about the Lincoln. I don't know. No, I did. I'm sorry. But that's two that are listed as opposed to 4 or more projects.
I had identified those two also. I mean, I think their method is more to put, as they said, they put together a team for the specific project, not, I mean, so they build teams in different ways, but to me, there were two that were closer than anything else.
Okay, well, that was one concern I had about experience and capacity. The other one, which I mentioned briefly last time, was the fact that they have not identified a property manager. They've said they'll hire one and they've laid out some criteria, but one thought that occurred to me as a result of our field trip on Monday was that if the developer who constructs the project also manages the project, you eliminate a little bit of, finger pointing this way when things go, when
Right.
things go wrong that are related to the construction itself. So if you have the same entity building it and managing it, they kind of own all the problems, and there's no blame fixing exercises that go on. Or at least it's within the organization instead of, between two organizations. So that's another concern I have. I know we didn't require them. I don't think we required them to identify a management entity, but the absence of one is, and the indication that it won't be them is a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, we didn't, we said it could be named later, and
And
Laura.
I'll just respond neutrally on that, that it is often the case that there's only a few developers that also have a management arm. And so it's often the case that management is procured later because otherwise it's just too early in the process for for the management companies typically to commit to anything at this stage.
Right. I did notice in reading through the other two also that they said primarily they are the managers of their properties, but sometimes they also use a third party. So I guess that's the question we'll want to ask the other two, if they are committing to their own management team for our project. Anything else under that category? I mean, it's significantly less experience, but they look like they're on their way to a long career, I hope.
Yeah, I think they're a 6-year-old organization, so
Right.
they're a little bit younger than some of the others.
And can we ask clarifying questions of them? Because I wasn't clear in the other major development they offered, Ace Flats in Reading, whether they were in fact the primary developer or whether it was Tradeworth companies. So I'd like, it just says the project is a partnership.
Yeah, well,
I mean, the others say, fairly clearly, we're the developer, we're the prime,
Is that, Laura, can we ask what the relationship was to the Ace Flats?
Yeah, you should. I didn't read the development team, their explanation, but Civico is a combination of two other developers that have merged together for this, for a couple of projects. So I'm not sure that it says it there, but if it doesn't, I mean, I think it's a legitimate question to ask them.
To clarify the relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
do you think it would be more chancy, Laura?
I'm not sure. That's a question we can ask.
No, I'm asking Laura. I'm not asking them.
No, that's what I mean.
Well,
I would say ask for their experience, I think. I don't think so, but
okay,
that's my opinion.
great, because I love their buildings, so I'd like to keep them in the mix as long as we can.
Okay, so we'll move on to affordability. That's an interesting one. Yeah. They're the only one of the three that seem to be wanting to expand up to 100 or 110, but there's also a very small number at the lower. Kathleen?
Yeah, I actually had more to say on the first category,
Okay.
developer experience. I went to page 5 in their proposal to us and highlighted why they felt qualified as a young company. I'll also say that it's probably one of the biggest reasons that I like them. is because they are young and kind of thinking outside the box in so many different ways here for us. And it goes back to all right, so let's skip that part. Let's go to affordability. It goes to a comment that Harry made at our last meeting. This particular developer mentions several times in their proposal to us about the missing middle. And this is exactly what's happening in so many communities across the Cape, is the middle class is just, they're gone. They're just gone. And here we have a developer who's proposing to really kind of, look at that, as part of their who they're going to be renting to. So I thought they met, I think they're again thinking outside the box a little bit, and this is why I like this one. So that's my comments.
Laura, do you think in their general presentation, the others will address why they didn't choose to go above 80%? Or is that a question we would ask them to clarify their decision about that?
Yeah, you can ask them to clarify. I can speculate, but it's all around funding sources.
Funding. Mhm.
It also might have something to do with the fact that highly advantageous says at least 85%. So they may have felt that, and that's partly my fault, I guess, because my concept here was affordable housing. And I wasn't so much thinking about market housing for the middle class, Kathleen. So maybe seeing that, wanting to be highly advantageous, they just went all the way with the 80% instead of including the rest. I don't know.
It appears that the financial getting it to work has to do with keeping the AMI low because they get certain tax credits. And I would like to hear the financial side of it, why they think they can make a go of it without using these tax credits. It's like an area I don't understand and need some help with.
Yeah, that the kind of missing middle, the people above 80% of AMI and below 120 or 125% is certainly an issue in Wellfleet. The RFP said at least 70% affordable to 80% AMI was some targeted, that was advantageous. And then at least 85% affordable to 80% AMI or below, that was highly advantageous. And they say our proposed project includes 100% of the units to be deed restricted, with over 70% of the units affordable at 80% AMI or below. So that seems to fall in the advantageous box per our evaluation criteria rather than in the highly advantageous box. And so I've kind of placed them there based on the affordability issue.
Right.
And I had a question that I think was answered with Gull Pond Road, where even the ones at 100%, there were two at 100%, but they still could qualify to be deed restricted. I don't know if Laura's still with us and could speak to how that works. If in a bigger development, if you have some that are over 80, they can still be counted towards the SHI somehow. There's something about that. When Laura comes back, we'll ask. Jan?
But the whole funding of this is not really based on tax credits the same way the other two are. It's for-profit, which makes it different right away. It's lending from banks. So it's an entirely different process. And so they wouldn't be as bound by the tax credit thing as the other two. That's my thought anyway.
Any more on affordability? A strange thing, and this is maybe semantics, but the term missing middle supposedly really refers to a type of building, not people that are caught in the middle. It's the missing middle kind of housing for people. It's kind of an odd thing, but I had always thought it meant people, but in general, the term refers to a kind of housing, but it's providing the kind of housing that doesn't exist in a way on the Cape. So it's a kind of a funny thing. All right. Any more on affordability for Civico? Site design.
Let's see.
We talked about the access road to the water tower. Missing.
I think what they did there is easy enough to be dealt with, according to what Paul said. It was just a path, really, so.
Right. Elaine, again, Kathleen, on page 7, they're calling, they say they're advantageous. The proposal meets some or all of the RFP site design criteria with thoughtful building siting, safe, efficient traffic flow, and natural buffers to surrounding neighborhoods. Meets, in their own words, they say their site design meets some or all. So I'm assuming that they know there's going to be some tweaking one way or the other. They also say, in regard to how they measure up to site design, the buildings distribute density across the site in structures reminiscent of traditional single-family Cape Cod-style homes. 2 access points from Lawrence Road exist, and the Long Pond buffer is preserved. We specifically requested that in the RFP. So I think they came up well, highly advantageous with regard to site design. Does anybody else have any comments on that?
Yeah, I love their site design, so.
I felt that maybe they were coming a little too close to abutting the property line with the way they had the buildings laid out. You know, I like their design too, and I've seen a lot of great proposals from Union Studios, and they do good work. But I felt like the one house that was like on the other side of the water tower, that was not something that would, you know, that we would want. But they did definitely preserve the Long Pond road buffer very well.
Yeah, I had the same note. I said, yes, but it appears to be less buffer than POA or TCB. And in fact, they go pretty close to the property line on 2 sides. And also, and of course on Lawrence Road too. Also, again, we have to deal with their treatment of the water tower and make sure that they have a clear understanding of what the limitations are there, because they just kind of show it with roads around it, and that may not meet the requirements for an exclusive access area around the water tower. There's some small things that aren't included, I think, just because these site design doesn't rise to the level of detail yet. Then it would have to show it. Things like underground utilities, exterior lighting, designated areas for snow, bike racks.
Bike racks are inside. They do
Okay.
have bike racks. They're inside the halls.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Okay, I can remove that question mark. Those I think are not deal killers. They're just things that just haven't been dealt with yet.
Um, Harry, I mean, Gary.
I struggled a little bit, Harry, with some of the other things that weren't there. Office space and storage space, just not included yet. But the question I have is, if you look at that and then now look at the scoring, how do we weigh that? So are we going to put a category that's this criteria is more important than other criteria?
Help, Laura.
Each category is weighed the same. That's the way you,
And within the category, Laura, so if, let's just take, for instance, office space for management. I didn't see that on there. So whether it's there or not, the question is that weighed the same as we like the design?
probably, I mean, I guess it depends on how important office space is. You know, without office space, you don't have someone on site.
Yeah.
Right, which is,
And they haven't decided if they're gonna have management yet, so.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that, so how
Well,
do you,
they'll have.
what I'm trying to
management.
figure out is how to weigh it in our, in our scale, it's clearly not there, but
Yeah,
does that disallow them?
I had the same concern because the highly advantageous criteria says proposal meets or exceeds all criteria. And, this one is silent on a couple of truly
Yeah.
minor items. Does that immediately require them to be ranked as advantageous? Or can we say, yeah, close enough for government work? We'll deal with where you plow the snow later in the process. Which is what I'm inclined to do. I hate to
Yeah,
I
to
agree.
kill a huge project based on the fact that they don't specifically say how they're going to deal with exterior lighting, because somewhere
Or
along
s-
the line, that's going to get dealt with.
right.
yeah, or snow for that matter.
Yeah, that's another one.
I think one of the big things in the site design section that we got a lot of feedback at the site visits was adequate parking.
Mm.
Yes,
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
almost like
We're not there yet, but
yeah.
that's under site design. It says adequate parking for residents and visitors.
Yep.
sorry.
We're in the site design section.
Right.
Um,
And the Civico is quite diverse. I couldn't quite, I don't know if they told us how many parking
I
places.
think
Civico has 1.56, Jan.
They have-
Okay.
they
So
had,
they're
they have
actually
the
over it.
most.
The other two are 1.1 and
1 and
1.3.
1.3. So theirs is the most parking.
Right. So
They have-
Laura, we had a discussion after the site visit, is we heard parking as a really important thing. And each of the, well, two of the three have proposed significantly less than the 1.5 required by our zoning. And we, regardless of it being required by zoning, we think it's really important to have adequate parking. How do we address that now through this process? Can we ask them at this point? And how does it change the cost of the bids? And
I mean, you can ask them how they think that their parking scheme, is adequate, how it meets that definition.
right,
I would look to the all the projects had different unit sizes. So just to say 1.5 per unit, if you have a studio, you're going to be on the lower end of that, and so I would look to that. And then also you could ask, if you don't think that what they've proposed is adequate, you can say, have you thought of other areas for overflow parking? And, you know, again, that's going to eat into whatever buffers they have or what, or green space,
Right.
but those are fair questions to ask.
Are those
Um,
questions that we send them prior to their presentation and ask them to comment on? And
I would think you would, to be fair to everyone, you should ask how, you know, how does your parking ratio meet the definition of adequate? And what's your plan B?
And Laura, I have a question. It's Kathleen.
Yes.
If in fact we don't ask about parking at this stage of the process, and we were to select a developer, wouldn't these questions with regard to parking come up before the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely,
I
but-
mean,
but-
one way or the other, they're gonna have to deliver on parking if it's not adequate.
Right, I think the difference or you don't want to set up a redesign at permitting
Right,
if you can help it. So getting those questions answered early is better. This is all conceptual, so things obviously can move around. But once they're awarded, they have to pretty much stick to what we say unless, you know, to what they've proposed.
Right.
Until permitting can change it, but then you then have to go back and look to see, you know, if that would have changed their scoring. So I would take it on now.
Yeah.
Let them give an answer. They might not have to plot it out for you, but they should have a reasonable response to that.
Yeah,
If I may, because to me, there's nothing here on any of the plans more important than the parking. I've talked with people lately because of what we saw on Monday, who have lived in multifamily situations or apartments or whatever, and they say the sorest subject and the thing that divides neighbors and drives people crazy is not enough parking places. And it's just key. And one of the developers here has said they're going to go for a variance in the 40B process because of our 1.5 requirement. I don't even think 1.5 is enough for this development with families. You can have, and we have, people have visitors. They have Sunday afternoon parties and where do people park? And then they get so angry, you're parking. I can't carry my groceries in. There's no place to park. I can't think of anything more important than the parking places for harmony in a dwelling. So I would advocate, please sending that out to the 3 developers before they come on the 10th.
I have a couple of questions about that. I mean, on weekends, there's a lot of parking at the school, and that's town. Is that town parking? I mean, people can't be, that can be used as parking when the school's not in session. So that might be a little bit of their thinking, but we also don't want it to be used during school and have that be an issue too. But Laura, our site includes a parking lot already, which we sort of talked about, and I guess we realized we didn't want it to say we want it to remain, but should it be identified as a reasonable accommodation for overflow parking? Is there, how do we potentially discuss that or evaluate that?
good point, Elaine.
I guess I'm not quite getting the
There-
parking that's along the.
There- When the temporary police station was on our site, they paved the parking lot there.
Yeah,
And that's included in our 6 acres, I believe.
yeah, it is.
And I think most of the most of the proposals absorb that into their, not as parking.
Right,
Yeah.
they greened it. They
They
greened
greened
it.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think, well,
I mean, I
it's kind of
haven't-
late at this stage to say, well, we don't want you to green that. We want you to put it as parking, but it may be a fallback. If they're asked to do a fallback to add more parking, they probably have that.
Yeah,
area.
actually, it looks like Civico could retain part of that at the expense of Pocket Part A. Pocket
Park A.
Park A,
Right.
Mhm.
but
But I think that's also where their septic thing is, right? Isn't that where their tank is
I think it's on the other side, Jan.
for Civico?
Double check.
How do we know where it is? I don't see it.
Well, they said it's someplace. I saw it somewhere. Ah, I'm beginning to get very confused.
Mhm.
Oh, dear.
Okay, well, that we can keep all that in mind
Yeah,
as we look at these things. Every time we talk, I go back and see things on the plans I didn't notice there before. So I think having them clearly identify those areas as part of their proposal their presentation would be important.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on site design? Okay, infrastructure and green design. They mentioned solar arrays, but I did not, they mentioned lead, definitely lead. They mentioned potential to have roofs solar ready, I believe. But then they talked about solar arrays, and I didn't see anything identified on the property, and whether they're talking about solar arrays, potential solar arrays on the property, or investigating ways to tap in to somebody else's system. Anybody else see the solar arrays on their drawings?
Mhm.
I haven't found it yet.
No, they have their
Right.
mechanical well.
Well, it's their rooftops, no?
Hi, Jay.
I mean, what I read was that the only thing was that the roofs are positioned in such a way that they could support.
Hi all, sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We're doing
Got the
Civico.
day mixed up.
Yep, yeah.
I can't
We're-
hear anybody.
oh,
Hmm.
I let Jay in, but, okay,
yep.
yeah. But- Hmm. I think Jay's trying to set it so he's hearing us.
I guess
I
so.
think it said you're
Wonder.
sharing screen with him
Yeah, you chose sharing screen, Harry.
instead of
Or Jay
letting
did.
him.
Sorry I was late. I got the day mixed up.
No problem.
Okay.
They,
Back to the full screen.
I can't, for some reason,
escape would get you out of that.
I don't know.
We're looking at your screen, so I think
know how to get out of it.
it's
I think,
it's who's ever in
Escape.
control.
I think escape gets you out of full screen, and then you should be able to click on stop sharing. You should see a little bar at the top.
And I think I
There
just,
you go.
There we go.
There we go.
I just went up to screen sharing and did stop participant sharing.
I don't know what I did, but it worked.
Okay, well,
Good.
it does, when they talk about solar, it does say, and I'm looking at the development concept, which is 72 and 73. It just says our goal will be to maximize the energy output from decentralized solar arrays to reduce reliance on electricity purchased from the grid. period. So it's, it's kind of an aspirational statement, but at least it's
Right.
there.
Right.
And does that indicate they would be looking for other solar arrays elsewhere
so.
that they could use to fund the?
Sounds like it.
Or
Not
their
clear.
rooftops. There's sufficient rooftop to do a
Right.
lot. So-
We're looking at Civico, Jay.
Okay,
We're on to infrastructure and green design, but if you have any other comments on them when we're done, love to hear them.
You're right about the septic thing. It was upside down. I was looking at it. It is on the other side.
So again, they say that that they are a lead, green building standard like lead. They say with regard to infrastructure, that they are going to fund 44% of the cost of the first phase of the wastewater system.
Right.
And that their design favorably orients rooftops for
Right.
solar panels. I believed we asked for that in the RFP.
Mhm.
They include electric charging stations in, quote, a parking court. And they are going to leverage green stormwater infrastructure. So again, they do state how they're going to address the wastewater, solar, and stormwater in the project.
Okay. Any more comments on this section?
Elaine?
Yeah.
On our site visit, we heard consistently that air conditioning was a really good thing to do. And that some of the projects, actually a new project, had not done it. And that the one thing she said she would change is air conditioning. We didn't include that, as I recall, as a criteria. But if we want that, can we say something about it now, or can we ask a question about whether air conditioning is included?
Well, if I can't remember, do they mention heat pumps specifically, Civico?
Well,
Does it-
No, they don't.
of itself doesn't deliver air conditioning, but my question is really to Laura. So we've learned that that's an issue. Laura, can we ask in our questions, or can we ask for clarification today about do they provide air conditioning?
You can ask the question, but it's not part of your scoring system.
Okay. But
And I have to, it's 10 o'clock. I have to
Okay.
leave you.
All right, thank-
If,
Thank you.
if there's any questions that you have, we can just write them down so that next time we can answer them.
right,
Okay.
thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye, Laura.
Bye.
Bye.
so Elaine, could we, and I'm happy to have other people who are on the site visit chime in on this, but I heard loud and clear, it sounded like that was a really important thing to provide.
Mhm.
And can we ask that question? Are they including air conditioning?
I think we have in the other two proposals, they mention heat pumps for heating and cooling. We want to make sure of that. So
So
but
if we could-
Civico hasn't addressed that, I feel like.
what did other people hear on the site visit?
Oh, definitely.
Same thing.
No doubt about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Could we ask a question like, how would you incorporate air conditioning? Would you want to allow individual units to get their own and just make it an open question?
Well, if they didn't mention the system they're going to use, that's the big question we have to ask, and then ask them to detail it.
The problem with air conditioning is it's expensive. And so, as Olga suggests, maybe allowing individual units or having individual units, I don't know, maybe.
They recommend, Jan, during the site visit, she specifically,
Yeah, I know. It's also summer. It was very hot.
And you're listening to somebody who's got management responsibilities as opposed to the developer.
Yeah.
And even though they operate under the same umbrella, and we saw this time and time again Monday, that the guy that's fixing the appliances has quite a different view on whether they should be provided, perhaps than the developer does.
Right. Yeah. So if somehow if it's not clear in their proposal, I think it is clear in the other two, but we'll go back and make sure
Right,
about
I don't see it
that.
in
We
this
should,
one,
we
that's
should
why.
ask about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And with regard to the expense, what we heard from all of the places we went to was that the tenants pay the utilities.
But it
And
seems to vary. Some of them use the expression, the plug load, which is that
Right.
all the plugs are metered and the tenants pay for that, but the heat is included in the rent. And in one place, they did a kind of an after the fact assessment to kind of, credit that, adjust that.
all I'm raising, Harry, is what is the responsibility of the tenant for the payment of utilities going forward? And we could get clarification of that.
Yeah, I suspect anything that gets plugged into a wall outlet, the tenant pays for. I think heat and light are part of the rent. Am I correct on that?
I don't know that you can make that assumption from either what we heard, Harry, on Monday or from the proposals. I'm just asking, I'd like to have clarity as to.
Yeah. I'm
know,
just
the-
wondering
what-
whether it's required based on HUD maximum allowable rents.
That's what I was
and
gonna
and
say,
what's
Harry.
included.
What we've
Yeah.
learned in the past, Harry, is that HUD does require the utilities, but that there is a methodology that says some collection of entities decide that the cost of heat is $100.
Right.
And then take that off of that maximum rent and then shift the responsibility. So if you want it
Yep.
higher, then you pay more. And if you want it less high, you pay less. So
I wrote that down as a clarification question to Laura. Yeah, because I think at Nookachok, she said, well, if the rent's $1,000, but we know that the heat is this much, then the rent is actually $900, and therefore they can pay the utilities. Yeah, lots to understand.
yes, all I'm asking is, can we clarify from our responses how they're handling the utilities? Both
And
of-
I'll say that with our AADUs, while they lasted, there was that formula determination that you pay less if you're paying utilities on your own.
Right.
We had a way of doing it.
Well, somebody said something about $100 credit toward the rent for utilities.
That
Right.
was
That was at Nookachok.
Yeah,
was it there? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
I forget.
Okay, let's move on to building design for Civico. We've already talked about that some of liking their buildings and.
No space for management.
Right, because they were questioning whether on-site management as opposed to just 24-hour emergency was necessary because of their design concept. So it doesn't include communities. It doesn't include indoor community space for residents.
Right.
Or office space for management, as far as we could see.
Right.
So no storage space for the units themselves, but they do not indicate there's a basement on their floor plans. So, are they allowed to say, oh, okay, we'll put in a basement and that will be storage?
Or are they relying on just the space that's within the units?
Right.
Yeah, these halls that they have that have the bicycle racks and stuff, they're designed, if you look at their if you look at like the Union Studio with the two houses connected. There's a mechanical well up at the top of the roof, and then that center white part of the building, I think, is some kind of combination of storage and, you know, that's where they put their unsightlies and so forth.
I mean, on the first floor, the entry
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but there is a limit
But
to how much.
not where the doors are, where the window is with the window box. It's not where the door lets you in, right? Well, let's see, let me find it.
While you're looking for that, Jan, I do want to say that looking actually at the floor plans is a really important part of it. It's not something I feel that skilled at, so I'm hoping our architects on the committee and other people that have done more, built their own homes and designed I think we really want to get into that.
I think that's a good point, Elaine, because I think that there are, if you will, problems with regard to floor plan at the village at Nauset Green. We know that the mechanicals are in each unit, and that compromised floor plan and space at the Brackett Road project. But I've also heard from older individuals who are residing there that the stairways in those units are proving very difficult for people with mobility issues. So I think you raise a good point. Let's have our two architects look at the floor plan. My glance at their floor plan is that they are designed for a variety of household types and mobility needs. But that's just my first take on that.
Well, I think mobility needs are taken care of by a ground floor unit or elevators. Stairs don't exist in a accessible unit. So if people are having trouble with stairs, like Brackett Road, it's, they are not officially handicapped or whatever.
Right. They're just older.
Right.
Could I ask a question of our architects?
Mhm.
There seems to be pretty broad differences in the square footage of the proposed units. And how do we evaluate that? I'm just looking at the Civico one here, and they're suggesting 1 bedroom 600 and 2 bedroom 816, and that's quite a bit different than the TCB one.
That's another thing Laura was going to actually send us, sort of the
Standard.
standard.
The minimum, I'm asking the
Right.
question, quality of life, happiness of the tenants.
Mhm.
Mm,
Well,
And do we measure that? Do we evaluate that?
I think they all meet minimum requirements,
Right.
so,
I understand, right?
yeah.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
it is a 1 bedroom that's 600 versus 1 bedroom that's 750. Is that substantially, quote unquote, better?
I don't think we can put a number on it.
And Gary, I think it goes to how they're dealing with the density on the site. Everybody, each developer is dealing with density
Yep.
in completely different ways.
Yes, you're right, Kathleen. I mean, it's a trade-off. I mean, one of them is proposing studios, which are even smaller.
Right.
Also, this is the only one that doesn't have a big building.
Well, I was going to say that if you were measuring these as acceptable and unacceptable, which is what we had started out doing,
Uh-huh.
This Civico is the only one that meets the height requirement.
Right, that's correct. And that's why when you talked earlier about being closer to the border of the property, that's why they're using more of the acreage,
Topography
yeah,
to avoid the height.
to avoid the height and to avoid big buildings. It makes it's just quite a different approach from the other two.
Mhm. Yeah, I've heard people say if their apartment had to be a little bit smaller, but the walls were thicker between, they would
I'd
prefer
like-
that
yeah.
to
Yeah.
a little bit extra space. I know my kids just moved into a apartment in New Jersey that said it was 650 square feet, but it turns out to be 480. It's not bad.
I can't find storage other than mechanical storage.
There is none. No.
I found the bike racks again, but I can't find anything that says storage for the unit. And
Elaine, is that a question we can ask them during a presentation? What they felt storage would be for these units?
I wondered whether or not it has to do with the hallway where the stairs are, whether or not that would be considered space.
Well,
for-
No, it's a fire hazard if they put stuff,
Oh, I know.
you know, so.
they have bikes in there, but you can't put boxes and, you know, summer chairs and all that stuff.
But
But
you
they
should-
also, they don't have basements, so they could just say, oh, we'll put basements in.
No, that's a huge expense. That's a,
Well, but they don't have storage, so.
right.
Yeah, the only one that shows any storage at all are the 3-bedroom cottages, and it says storage/mechanical. And kind of what we heard from the property managers is you really want to keep the tenants away from the mechanical space
Right,
because strange things happen when they have access to them.
right.
So that is an issue.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, Laura said a general question to start with is to explain their vision of what they did, but we could also say which includes these elements. so
Right.
that they could be
Parking,
prepared
storage.
to talk to that. But I think the floor plans are something that are going to mean a lot to the tenants. And we have one of our sessions maybe really just looks at all 3 proposals and those much more carefully.
That's a great idea, Elaine, a great idea.
I mean, just my take on the floor plans is that somehow I like the 1-bedrooms better than the larger units. But they all work for what we're seeing, they work fairly well. But you know, some of the bedrooms are very small. With this particular building design, there's not a lot of windows, and a lot of the bedrooms have only 1 window in the larger units.
What we saw on the site visit in the side-by-side units, that unless you have an end unit,
Right,
you're not getting a lot of light. And so that's really something to look
Yeah,
at.
I mean, well, it's the nature of the beast. You're talking about someone trying to update a 150-year-old Greek revival design in a way. And the design itself doesn't call for a lot of windows when it's done in a fairly unmannerist way.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's kind of if you're married to that, you're kind of stuck with this kind of situation.
Okay, I want to make sure we give TCB its due this morning too. I think we covered a lot.
moving right along, right?
Can I just ask one question? Maybe of the group that went on the site visits. Did we come to any conclusion about laundry? What we want?
Well, I think that I certainly did.
Jan, let me hear your conclusion.
Well, that I would definitely want to have hookups in my apartment. And maybe the only ones that, I mean, you'd have to in the Civico anyway, because they don't have a central place to do that, okay? The other places, one of them with the big building had the, yeah, they had a place for laundry. So would they also have hookups in the rooms? I don't know, in the units?
Civico doesn't show it.
Yeah,
No.
right. I didn't
There's
see
no
that at all.
place
There doesn't seem to be the room to alter them, to put it in either.
That's what Laura was saying. If they didn't
Yeah, I
have
mean,
it and they
the-
didn't show a space. that's
the
a
layouts
problem.
are so tight that,
Hmm.
you know, it would take a major redesign to put even a stack unit in these places.
So they don't think anybody's gonna need to wash their clothes?
Well,
That's not possible.
yeah, we'll have to find out more about that.
I just think maybe we could ask the question.
Yes,
Right.
good idea.
Well, they do have sinks in the bathrooms and the kitchens.
They do show
Wash the
washer,
baby anyway.
they do show washer dryer in the 3-bedroom cottages,
The cottages, yeah,
but
which are my favorite buildings. They're
Hey,
just so
They
cute.
have a utility area, Harry. I don't know if that includes.
this one
We
it says
can't put it in.
W/D.
WD, yeah.
No, I'm talking about in the smaller units.
Okay, I haven't found it in the smaller units if
They-
it's there.
Right, all I'm saying is that they have something called utility, UTIL. and I
Yep.
wonder if that includes,
No. It's like a hot water tank, that sort of thing.
yeah, no, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
find it.
Washer dryer unit in the 3-bedroom
Right.
Yep.
cottage, I guess it is, that it's not big enough to put a washing machine in there.
You
Yeah.
have to do one on top of another, that type.
So maybe for the sake of moving on, we can just ask for clarification
Yep.
for laundry.
Okay. So for financial feasibility, we can't really do, they did show their proposed budgets, but the rest of it, well, the track record of securing proposed financing, a bit of that will come out when references are called, but the middle part is part of the pro forma, so. And then the reference site visits, interviews. Olga typed up a great report on our site visits, which I will get out to everybody. I really appreciate your doing that, Olga.
Sure.
And she asked me to add pictures, but I realized I stopped taking pictures after the first one. So that was, I just got so much going on. Anyway, but I think that was a good pass through Civico. And we take a breath and pull out TCB. Okay. Developer experience and capacity. I think they provided a lot of support and information for that category. Any comments?
It seems to be a pretty complete and robust statement.
I agree. Lots of experience. Affordability.
I think they met all the requirements
Mhm.
there.
They mentioned something that in their proposal called income averaging, which Laura has spoken about. And I think that's kind of the way where they try to get credit for units that are at a higher percentage, but I had wanted to ask her to explain that again, but I don't know if it's that important in the scheme of things, but they were the only people that mentioned potentially using income averaging.
Do you think that's a way of them addressing market rate?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
So
Um,
are we saying that that it was advantageous or highly advantageous in terms of affordability?
Well, I think it met, it looks like, I'm looking at page 22, it looks like 100% of the units are 80% AMI or below,
Exactly.
and that checks the highly advantageous
Yeah.
box.
Right.
Well, Harry, I think it depends upon how you actually read it, because I agree with you for the first part, but then with regard to 30 to 120%, are they still highly advantageous?
They're in that range, and that's all we said.
That's right, right,
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Mm.
depending upon how you read it, I also gave them highly advantageous, but I'm just questioning myself, how you read that and how important is it to us that it be at the upper limit?
And even if it was at the upper limit, that could change when they go for their financing.
Exactly.
So I think we have to be,
Allow for some
let's-
leeway on that.
yeah.
90%.
Yeah, they do say on the next page, workforce units will be targeted somewhere in the 80 to 100% AMI range.
What page is that, Harry?
23,
23.
the second full paragraph down from the top. First sentence.
They give an example. A firefighter with no additional income making 40,000 could afford a 60% AMI, one
Mhm.
bedroom unit. Very low income households will have access to project-based vouchers to assist them with rent payment. So I think they've done quite due diligence on how.
I'm agreeing, Kathleen. I'm just trying to understand what we want. And they also say in that same thing that it's all dependent upon this full market study that will really determine how much DHTD will allow them to charge for the rent. Which we heard from Brackett Road, that's how they got to 90%, I believe.
Right.
Okay, but that's a good question. I mean, we left a big range, 30 to 120%, so.
Right.
Okay, move on to site design.
Okay,
The only minus, excuse me, excuse me, the only two things I flagged in my notes are just noting that the walkway between the two areas crosses the tower access easement.
Right,
And they're talking about 1.1 spaces per unit, which does not meet the bylaw, in which we were told that at two of the places we visited was, problematic to have that little parking. Other than that, I really didn't find anything that I thought was an issue.
My one question was they often mentioned minimum paving. So I really was curious, did they mean the driveways, any parts of the road? That their pictures sort of showed like a gravel or something, and I don't know how that works with snow removal and stuff like that, but I just was curious about where they envisioned that minimum paving.
I'm assuming it's the whole project. Which is going to be an issue with our environmentalist who who are concerned with pavement.
Right, I know poor
And
surfaces.
Most, I know that when we were discussing extending beach parking, there was a huge controversy that the surface be permeable for water. But so that could be a question that we ask for clarification with them.
Mhm.
Well, you can have both. Commercial Street in Provincetown has got permeable pavement and, unfortunately, they have to vacuum it instead of street sweeping it, which is the,
It's also very expensive.
yeah, it's expensive maintenance, but it is possible to avoid having a, hardscape where all the water is going to be controlled at the edges.
We could ask about that, everybody, what the surfaces, what they envision the surfaces to be.
Speaking of roads, is it a problem that there's only one entrance and exit for the Lawrence Green part? Because the road doesn't connect. If you look at Lawrence Green, the road comes in and out the same one place because it doesn't connect with the schoolhouse corner part. I can't picture that the fire department would like that. I don't know.
They say on page 26, Jan, third paragraph down, that the walking path that connects the two sections of, are you talking about that with regard to the water tower?
No,
No, the
I'm
road.
talking about the one egress and entrance is the same for all the units called Lawrence Green.
No, they're not. I keep looking. I wander off camera because I got this thing spread out all over the place. It doesn't mean I'm not here.
Same here.
There is a note on the site plan on page 24 that says service, fire access road, and connecting path. I guess the message
that'll be a
there
road?
is that it would, and we'll hear from the fire chief on this, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
Because otherwise, turning around a piece of fire equipment on this layout, if that's not connecting, is going to be a huge issue.
Yep.
Well, they do
But-
address it, Harry, on 26, when they
Yep.
say that emergency vehicle access would egress the site through the water tower.
Hmm.
That'd have
That's
to
what
be
they're,
pretty
that's
wide.
what they, yeah.
Yeah. So, but Jan, you're saying that basically both the accesses off of Lawrence Road would be, there'd be a two-way driveway or street as
Right.
opposed to a one-way that we would
exactly,
see
exactly.
with the
And-
others.
And I'm just concerned that, in an emergency of any kind, that would block up. And I'm not sure how that would work. Even in the schoolhouse corner, how would anything turn around? I mean, it's parallel parking. Those first spaces are parallel parking. So how do you turn around and come out? Even if you're Joe Blow living in one of those units, you've pulled in and parked, and I don't know, is there room to that? No, it just wouldn't work. Do you see what I'm saying at the schoolhouse part? How do you turn your car around?
Well, Jan, I see what you're saying, but I think that we'd have to hear from Chief Pauly and Chief Hurley with regard to how that might get addressed, because obviously everybody's going to have to deal with that.
No, other people have made, the other two have, you can go all the way around. This is the only one where
It's
I
one
don't
way.
think it's the chief of anybody's responsibility. It's our responsibility to see if this is a practical plan, because in order to have those parking spaces usable, the early ones, you have to have a place for those people to turn around and come back out that same way.
Right, yeah, it looks like it could be tricky.
Elaine,
Gary?
both in terms of the wastewater and in terms of fire and police, we don't have another meeting between now and the public presentations on the 10th. I'm just wondering if we need some time for them to weigh in before that.
I think if any time they weigh in is going to be useful. It sounds like Harry might hear from the
Right.
chief before, and I'm going to talk to Kurt.
We probably ought to just let Mike Hurley know what we're doing too, just in,
Yeah.
I suspect the most substantial concerns will be from the fire chief.
Right, right.
Anyway, maybe we should consider another meeting, give them an opportunity to weigh in and for us to all to hear their comments.
Yeah. I'm not sure, if you want to schedule them, that's fine. I would not be able to attend, which is not a problem, because they're recorded and you can
I
hear
know
them.
you're remote, Elaine, but could you participate via Zoom or no?
Mhm.
Don't know.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think it's not gonna, the plans are not gonna change significantly. We're looking for information as we go further along to
Yeah.
make our final decision. We're not gonna, we
Yeah.
can't say, can you change this when we meet with them? I think anytime we get the info is going to be helpful, but if you'd like to have another meeting next week, we can certainly schedule it. And
Just another note about this one. It looks like the area where the existing parking, the temporary parking, the paved parking we constructed with the temporary police station appears to be undisturbed on their site plan. It's approximately 100 by 100. And that area appears to be undisturbed here. So they don't say they're going to remove it or keep it, but it certainly wouldn't require moving buildings or roadways around to keep it.
Correct. By undisturbed, you mean it's treed?
Well, it's
paved.
it's not proposed to be disturbed by their project.
Yeah, but on the picture, it's all trees, so.
Yeah, well,
So in their parking, they mentioned that they're gonna have total 53 parking spaces. Out of the 53 spaces, 48 spaces are for residents. And 5 of those spaces are for staff and visitors.
Hmm.
5 of the 53 spaces will be handicapped. But I mean, again, we're thinking that in this particular proposal, that might not be enough parking.
No,
So,
no.
right,
I'm marking them advantageous. I did not give them a higher score on this.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. Okay, well, let's
Yeah,
finish up and we can see how people feel about an extra meeting to try to get a couple more people to weigh in before we hear the presentations. Jay, were you going to say something? No? Okay, any more comment on site design?
There's one thing that I'm noticing, and I think Harry called attention to it earlier, that some sort of a connecting path crossing the water tower right away.
Yeah,
It looks to me like it's some sort of a underplayed, maybe emergency roadway or something that connects.
that's what they refer to it as, Jay.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
and so that does make a loop around here.
yep.
right.
But
Uh,
it's not for a car, it's for emergency.
Well, that's what's unclear. Part of it looks like it may be for a car. It's unclear to me. Let's put it
They're
that way.
referring to it as an emergency vehicle egress. So I'm assuming that you can get an emergency vehicle
Right,
through
fire.
that path.
Fire access, but
Yeah.
not for
Yeah,
people.
but
who
if
use
it's
every day.
unless it's gated off, the residents are going to use it.
Right.
Yeah, the path could easily be moved and but it could still keep the fire emergency with
But
a.
we have to judge what's kind of given to us, I suppose.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I got the impression from Paul Millett that the easement from Lawrence, from Long Pond Road to the water tower wasn't an area where he felt compelled to have exclusive control as long as he had access.
Right.
It was the area, the fenced circular area around the water tower that he really wanted to be kept free of anything that could interfere with, maintenance and repair operations.
Yes.
So if that assumption is correct, then that could be turned into, make that roadway a loop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I heard too. And, we didn't really specify that fenced in area had to remain as is, and most people have done something with that area. So, we can, I think that's a
Yeah.
legitimate.
Remain, Elaine, is the circular fence around the water tower.
Right. So they put trees around it. Okay, anything more on site design?
Gonna take a pretty big tree to hide the water tower.
Okay, infrastructure and green design.
A question on, wait, I'm sorry, I did have a question. Did anyone notice whether or not they had bike racks?
Some do.
There is
Yeah,
Yes, they had bike racks, Jim.
Okay.
it's shown on the overall landscape plan
right.
Oh, okay, I see it now, yes.
somewhere. There's one, there's another one.
Yeah.
For
Oh,
what-
it didn't, but these do, yeah.
For what it's worth, they're the only folks that show snow removal site too.
Yep.
And storage and all kinds of good
And
stuff.
actually, Jan, you'll like this. It says very clearly, laundry will be provided with each apartment.
Yay, love it.
Yeah, I wonder how they're gonna do that, Gary, in the studio.
I'm only reading.
There's no place to sit, but there's a washer in the dryer.
Well, yeah.
I think under this, in terms of wastewater, what we heard from abutters is we've heard a lot of reasons how this is going to help the Duck Creek watershed, but I'm not sure, and this, because we haven't heard how it's going to affect abutters. And that's a big question. People are concerned that leaching of nitrates and the residue from pharmaceuticals are going to compromise their wells. That's the big question we heard from abutters. So I'm definitely going to be running that by Kurt. And then if we need more info from on-site about that. But, we've been sort of talking about that all as a benefit to Duck Creek in that direction. But we have to get some information about how, what the effects, if any, or improvements would be to our abutters.
Well, I'll just speak about going back to, going back go back on this in that, when we were investigating an IA system for this site, that would have been more of a question for abutters. With this, with this RFP, we've inserted a wastewater treatment system. So it's highly unlikely with a wastewater treatment system that anything like pharmaceuticals or any of that is going to leach out. This is actually a benefit to anybody that's up on that hillside, in that we're reducing it to almost zero.
They need a clearer statement on that.
Yeah,
Back
no,
up.
I hear you. Yeah.
Jim?
So, and I would say it's specific to compounds other than nitrates.
Yeah,
I think we've been talking about the value in reducing nitrates.
Mhm.
But in fact, there is a leaching area designed underneath the ball field and
Right.
some to be leaching out there, whether it's clean effluent, you know.
Mhm.
So we just need someone to comment on that.
That is the question. They refer to that leaching field and, you know, what that's gonna produce.
Right.
Harry? You have your hand up?
I did not have my hand up,
Okay.
or if I did, it's left
Oh,
over.
no, that's my stupid cursor, sorry. That shows up as a hand sometimes. I have
Oh,
to make it so big that I can see it, that it turns into a hand. It looks like a clown hand. It's a big white hand. It's amusing.
where
Oh, we're
did,
muddling along here. Good, good.
yeah, where did they explicitly state that they would, that they include 44% of the wastewater treatment plant?
I don't see it, Harry.
I have kind of a note, but I can't figure out in the document where it is.
Harry,
On page 29,
Okay,
I would think it would be on page 29. They mention the wastewater system, that they wholly support the town's prioritization of it, but
That
they
was
don't
what-
give us a percentage.
Does it show in their budget figures at all?
no, the only one that I saw that actually had the wastewater was the POA in their uses of capital.
Mhm.
I just looked at the community builders one, and it's not specifically mentioned, and I have a question to myself here about the wastewater cost. So should we ask that question? I think the other question I have is, I'm assuming that the cost for the deconstruction of the old COA is included, but nowhere do I see it explicitly. That was it's not in our evaluation criteria, but it is on our requirements and within the RFP document.
Right.
I think I saw it on Civico.
it was
Say
on,
we applaud it.
yeah,
Didn't actually have the dollars.
Yeah, I saw
it
it.
was on Civico on page 7.
Yeah. I don't know where it is here.
I haven't seen it in TCB.
I
I
haven't
had
seen,
a note here that says second page after page 66, but I can't find page 66. So that doesn't help.
Okay, well, we will search for that in the future, unless somebody finds it right now. I think we have such different proposals from each for green design in a way. The question that, I mean, this one, they specified LEED 75 plus or higher. They could make the roof solar ready, but that was something they wanted to talk to the town more about how important it was to them. We have big decisions in this area, I think, and the differences amongst the proposals.
good. Could I just speak to Harry's comment? Harry, the second page after 66 refers to POA,
Oh,
and it's the $764,000 wastewater infrastructure under uses of capital.
okay, but it's the wrong
Not
different
in this.
proposal.
The second line down from that. I didn't see it in the other two specifically. I saw verbiage to it, but I didn't actually see the dollars.
Mhm.
Okay.
We saw interesting examples of the stormwater management they're talking about through
Yeah.
plantings and stuff like that at Nokachoke. And issues of retention from the wastewater. It was interesting that neither of the wastewater plants from outside seemed to have any odor.
None, no.
Um,
But the $3,000 a month
In electric
in
costs, are-
electricity to run it, that was an overwhelming number, I thought.
Well, that plant services a whole bunch of units.
Yeah. Well,
The Nokichoke one, that was 3,000, and that's what, 44, 45 units.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
But remember
I'm
that
thinking,
of the town, not a cost to the developer.
right,
But you know what, Harry,
Yep.
what I was struck with was we don't have any gas. So they had a huge backups system generator
Mhm.
and really big. We must have to have really big propane to run that generator.
Mm.
Well,
We're gonna put those.
yeah, I mean, town hall's got a generator that's oil, that's, I don't know, oil fired or gasoline
Right.
fired or something. The police station has one that I believe is propane fired, if memory serves me.
right.
How big were the tanks that they put in for the police station?
I don't recall. It's a pretty big tank because I think it does some other, it's not just the generator.
Right, I'm just saying, I'm off topic, but it will be a consideration for the wastewater folks.
Yep.
So Elaine, are we still on infrastructure and green design?
Mhm, yes.
I thought they met all the requirements.
Mhm.
With the exception of, they have not mentioned, ponying up for the wastewater. I do not find it anywhere. I think that's a big question here.
They just support it.
Yeah,
Well, we're asking the developer to, in their financials to provide, at least come in at 44% of the cost.
we could ask the question, Elaine, do you commit to the 44% or 760,000 or whatever it is?
It's not in their financials either, so.
I almost thought they were doing an old-fashioned wastewater plan. The way it looked to me somehow.
Okay, so we move on to building design.
Yes.
Ugly.
Yeah,
I know this is funny, Jan, but that's actually not one of our criteria.
I know. That's why I tried to just,
That looks very much like a lot of Greek revival era buildings that you see around Wellfleet.
that's so close together. You don't see that.
yeah, I look at this, their building design, and I just, I don't know if it fits Wellfleet. I see, it just looks like public housing, Harwich, Dennis, Hyannis, Yarmouth. These are big buildings. And while it's, New England style architecture, it's just the size of it,
Mm.
The view
And,
on page 38 is pretty frightening to me.
I thought the scale was kind of large myself. And their preferred trim style does look a little bit, if you were going to compare it to some other public housing projects, it would be closer than some of these other.
That may be a result of the fact that they've preserved so much of the property around the edges that it's all sort of jammed together.
Exactly.
well,
Yeah,
again, it's how they're dealing with density on this property.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Do we like this, the density of this, of how they cited the buildings on this?
No.
Personally, I don't, but, I'll let everybody else say something.
I don't know, I like this one better than POA's design, frankly.
I agree with you there, Harry. Yeah.
Agree with that too.
I'm wondering if their renderings weren't really showing what it's going to look like, because I mean, I thought the schoolhouse corner looked more like a mashup of a quarter cape and a half cape and a salt box all put together, which,
Yeah, I didn't mind the schoolhouse corner so much. I mean, the main section that looks just very dense to me.
No,
well, they're all dense.
Yep,
Yep,
No,
they all, yeah, they're.
well, some are more creative than others.
Mhm.
I also, you know, I really didn't like their landscaping. They want to bring in boulders and large stones, and you know what? The glacier didn't leave that stuff here. I don't think that's part of our natural look. You will see stones when you get up to West Barnstable.
Brewster.
And Brewster, but they're bringing in landscaping materials that I thought were quite incongruous to the site itself.
Mhm.
Those are my comments.
On the site visit, Westport was about the same size as the ones we have proposed. And it seems like that design was the one most closely resembles this. I asked other people on the site, was that one? Yeah,
That one was, the wide street. There
yeah.
was a lot more space. I think they had
More
15
space,
acres or something like that. They had a lot more room, and it didn't look anything like this to me.
yeah.
Wasn't nearly as dense.
right.
So did we didn't see one, and Chatham was the same. It was
Spread out.
not dense.
Mhm.
Although I don't know if it was on such a bigger property, but I don't really know.
It had lots of individual, what am I trying to say? Choke. I'll call
Look at
it
your-
choke. It had a lot of charm, I thought, because of the different individual entrances with little spaces for people to make it pretty, cement patios in front of the doors. It went in and out, but I hated where their washers and dryers were. I thought that was just awful. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. Yeah. I mean, their buildings were more consistent. They looked similar. There was some color variation, but it was very consistent.
Mhm.
Where it feels like our three proposals are really trying to mix it up, and thinking that potentially smaller.
This one is just brown and white, or gray and white. That's it, right? Gray and white.
It looks it that way, yeah.
Yeah. On page 38, that's what I keep looking at. And
One building looked like Bell Vernon. It looked like they,
Yes, it does, Elaine.
Yeah.
That's so funny you say that.
looks like what?
All the
Bell
places we
Vernon.
saw
Oh,
we're pretty much the same palette. I mean, there wasn't
yeah.
a lot of variations on,
no,
green and faded gray.
right.
I've been looking at Wellfleet in a whole different way as I drive around and walk around now, and it's really true. Things are really plain and not very ornamented, except in our wonderful downtown. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was the one that had 8 studios too at 575 square feet.
Yeah,
But I think that doesn't Civico have even smaller, some 450?
on the studios, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anything more under building design? Okay. Same thing with financial feasibility. We know they have a track record of proposed financing.
Oh, wait a minute, just because we've already mentioned it, I didn't mention it this time, but maybe should, the height variance that's going to be needed.
Mhm.
So we have to consider that too.
And I think POA, does POA have to ask for that too for?
Right.
the-
Very much so.
Right,
Right, but
the-
both POA and TCB are gonna go for a comprehensive permit.
right.
And you know, that would be that would come up during that permitting process.
Right.
Okay. There's our first pass through all 3 of them.
I did notice one thing, it's maybe kind of snobby or whatever, but all their leaders for the New England PCP,
All their what?
they all have like one has a master's from MIT, another one a master's from Penn. And I mean, they all went to Ivy League schools. It's just kind of interesting.
They really did have an impressive collection of academic credentials.
Really, it's mind blowing. Cornell is
Yeah.
in there too.
Yep.
Yay. Don't be a snob.
I was gonna say, are we grading up or grading down on that?
I graded up. I thought that was
It
terrific.
hurt.
So Elaine, are we gonna discuss possible questions for the presentations?
I'd like to do that.
Have we made a list?
I haven't made a list yet. I had asked Laura for some, additional help on that, but haven't gotten anything yet. I mean, we could schedule a meeting for next Wednesday to have some questions in front of us to review and to try to hear from Kurt if possible, and any reports from the chief if we want to do that, or otherwise we can get questions together, send them around, have people say yes, no.
I'm
Yeah.
open to as many meetings as we need to do. I have been thinking about a question that I would like to ask each developer during their presentations. And maybe I'll put it out there so that we can all think about it. In looking over all 3 proposals and doing just what you have said, Elaine, walking around the community of Wellfleet. I've also walked the Lawrence Road property again, completely. So my question to all 3 developers during their presentation, what is their personal perception of Wellfleet as a community? What in one paragraph can they give me as a description of how they perceive Wellfleet? Because we are uniquely different in the summer than we are in the winter. Our demographic has changed post-COVID. I can't even say post-COVID yet. We're not there yet. But it would be of great interest to me to know that each developer, what is their perception of Wellfleet? And I would have a better understanding of the plans and proposals that they've given us. I don't know how anybody else feels about that question.
It's an interesting question, but something that's on my mind is sometimes when people are making a presentation, they go on and on with their allotted time. And then you end up with not enough time to talk about possibilities, to talk about questions, to get answers. So somehow I would like these developers who make the presentation know that they should answer things as succinctly as possible, because we have so many things we want to talk to them about. And we know there is only a certain amount of time when we have to move on.
Well, we can have a timekeeper, Jan. You know, we can simply, one of us can simply be a timekeeper with regard to each proposal, and, you know, just do this when they're getting close to their time. I know, you know, when I was with the Wellfleet Community Forum, a lot of people can go over their time allotment. So fortunately, we had Barbara Gray back then, but she was a
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Well, I think, you know, Laura suggested that the first question that you give to everybody is, you know, can you speak briefly to your vision for this project? And you can say as related to Wellfleet as a community. And
Right. That would do it.
that would work it in. And I think after that question, then our clarifying questions are what we want, because we want, you know, we want as much real information as possible.
Elaine, I would be comfortable with having you or you and Harry ask all the questions. I mean, we could come up with the list of questions, but rather than taking the time to go back and forth to people, if you want to either take the lead or you and Harry take the lead on actually asking all of them,
yeah, it should be the host that asks the questions.
be able to monitor it better and you know, keep them on
Right.
track.
Yeah, I think that works. I mean, I would be very happy to share that duty,
Mhm.
especially since I'm going to be really remote in case anything went wrong.
Are we gonna have Rebecca on board by then? Rebecca
Yes.
Slick?
Yes.
I would like to nominate her as the one that's asking the questions.
I
How does
suspect,
anybody else feel about that?
That she hasn't been part of the process.
Yeah.
yeah, I suspect
Yeah.
that we are much more familiar with the
Right.
content of these proposals than she is.
Okay, okay, yeah, all right.
Right. No, I think so. I think the combination of Harry and Elaine would be best. Yep.
Okay. And I mean, you know, Laura said ideally they talk for 20 minutes. I know we felt that might be a little too short for the importance and size of this project to us. So if we gave them 30,
Mhm.
and we had 10 to 15 for our follow-up questions. And if it runs longer, that's fine, because I actually scheduled like a half, you know, maybe too much downtime in between. And we're not going to want to deliberate or discuss afterwards. So
No,
a longer presentation could work for us.
Mhm.
Yeah, I bet that downtime evaporates pretty quickly, Elaine.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if asking about their perception of Wellfleet wouldn't, I don't know how useful that is, because they may want to flatter us.
Yeah.
You know, they might not be honest about their perception of who we are. And I don't think we want them to go through those gymnastics and thinking, oh, what's the best way to.
Well, I meant, do they see us as a year-round community? Do they see us as a summer resort community? Not, you know, us personally or whatever, but, you know, yeah.
I thought some of them addressed that pretty well in their applications, actually, in the beginning things. I mean, I thought Civico really kind of addressed that very nicely. And then in others, as they talk about the wages of so many of our people and how low
Right.
healthcare wages are, but we're an aging population and, you know, we're going to need these people. I felt like, I think they all have people involved with them that are pretty
Know the community, yeah.
connected. I mean, POA has CDP as a partner. So I think we really want some hard, maybe a little harder core
Like,
questions.
where are you going to put your storage? And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the things that are really, I mean, important to the tenants, important to the look of the place. It sort of drives me nuts that everybody says, well, so shield it so people don't see it. I mean, let's have a design that people would love to see, you know? Um,
Right.
I think about walking around our downtown that's so dense and so interesting, but you know, the reality is we need to keep it as, you know, low key
Yeah.
as possible.
I would probably be inclined to ask them questions to flesh out details.
Mhm.
Things like how they plan to address the tenants' laundry needs and storage needs, whether they explicitly commit to supporting the wastewater treatment plant as required by the RFP, their thoughts on vehicle circulation, their thoughts on parking, their thoughts on the design, the massing and the design as it relates to what they see in the rest of Wellfleet. Things like that to get more information about their proposal as opposed to engaging in a redesign
Mhm.
or trying to design the project for them.
Mhm.
So Harry, could you write all those down?
Write that down, Harry. That's.
Oh, I did
Yeah,
already.
that's perfect. Thank you.
I did
that-
already.
I mean, that's even better than asking their vision. This breaks it down
Yeah,
into their vision and the realities.
they're both important things, but yeah.
I mean, we could just ask them at the end to speak to their vision a little bit more if they wanted to, but these are really good questions.
Right.
We can run them by Laura too and just, you know, make sure they're.
Yeah, and I think Gary wanted to have air conditioning question in there too, because there's no way to understand that.
One of them, I think the community builders specifically talks about air sourced heat pumps.
Mhm.
which
Yeah,
would provide
heating and
air
cooling.
conditioning,
Yeah.
Which would
Not all.
provide heating and cooling.
But
Right.
but
I
I
think
think the
so,
other
that's
two,
good.
it would be good to get clarity on that. If they are in fact proposing air conditioning, and if so, how?
Hey, are we tired enough?
Yeah,
The
I
workout.
got 3 granddaughters running around the house, so I've got,
Well, they're pretty
Put in-
quiet, Harry.
well, that's because there
Yeah.
are 2 closed doors between me and them right now.
You're a very lucky man. Goodbye,
But-
everybody.
But I gotta go play with them.
Are we saying no extra meeting next week? We're gonna,
Just circulation of questions.
Harry and I will phone
I'll
them
get
and
those questions out probably.
I'd love to
this
get
afternoon.
Olga's notes.
yep, we'll send along.
And could we encourage Laura to send us the score sheet that we're going to need right after that?
You should find it in your email, and if you can't,
Yeah.
open it, let me know.
I had trouble downloading it, as I said.
I couldn't download it either.
Okay,
So-
I'll take a look. We'll see.
A
but-
PDF would be good, not a Word document.
Mhm.
It was a spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, It's
excellent.
Excel, it's Excel.
Oh, I didn't see.
Excel, but not everybody can open that.
No,
Elaine, are we giving them the questions beforehand, or are we just asking them during the session?
I mean, the ones that we can ask everybody, we can give them beforehand, I believe. Laura said that's an option. We can double check with her. Nobody has, you know, only Civico said, I'm going to get back to you to ask more about it. Nobody else has. They've probably done this a lot, but
This is where the reason I asked about this being a public meeting, because they can see these questions right now.
Yeah,
And so maybe we
exactly.
better hand them an official determination of what you want to ask.
mhm. Or, you know, we can say these are the things we'd like you to address in your part of the presentation. And then we will follow up with some specifics to your unique proposal.
yeah, we could do that. Okay.
Yeah, we might get better answers than if we spring them on them
Exactly.
without
Well
having
rehearsed.
heard them. Should we, okay, so I know Kurt had said he could potentially come to the 13th meeting, September 13th. I mean, I think you know, it's not going to change the presentation. So if we can wait to do that then,
Right.
that would be great.
And what about, can we get the fire chief to come then too, Elaine? Ask him.
I have asked him, I have waited to hear back.
Yeah, no, I mean, can we invite him to the meeting on the 13th
13,
to give his input? And
Sure.
whether fire and police or,
Mhm. Yeah, we could have all of them.
Yep.
be good.
Yeah. And we will have Becky back then, so that'll be good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate how all of you are working on this, and it's going to be, you know, it's just a great group. Thank you so much. We can send the draft questions to you and to Laura to get a little feedback before I send them. Or, I mean, even if Rebecca wanted to send them after she gets back, I don't know. I think it's probably fine for us to send them. I think she'd probably
Sorry.
prefer that.
Is this not deliberation?
Hmm?
Is it deliberating when we're doing it out of the public, or is that okay? I don't know why I'm just fixated.
It's just-
Well,
You mean making a list of questions would be considered
Well-
deliberating?
Yeah,
yeah, making a list and sending it to everybody is one thing. Getting feedback from you all that says, I don't like this question and I want to change that question, that's
That's open to
clearly
everyone.
deliberating.
but-
So
but-
if we're
but-
gonna hash over these questions, we should do it at a meeting.
Mhm. But two of us can deliberate and come up with the final questions, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
as long as the rest of you are willing to be satisfied with whatever the product is, period.
okay.
we
Can I
have
ask-
confidence.
Thank you.
No debate, no comments from the peanut gallery.
We may
Okay.
not be satisfied, but we may be willing to accept them.
That would be acceptable.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
see you all next Friday at 10.
Okay.
Okay.
Looking forward to.
Enjoy your time, Elaine.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well,
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye now.